Everybody, we are here. We are live. It is Monday, as usual, normal time, normal place, right here at AB Tech Talks. We do have a fun-filled event for you tonight. So, as you can see, we are AB Educate. Thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up. You're only as good as the crew. This is episode 11, I think we said it was. I know it says 10, but it's episode 11. Thank you for coming back. We greatly appreciate it from all of us, the co-hosts, the panelists, everybody. We do appreciate you guys coming back. Everything you guys do is the reason why we're here and keep doing this for you.
Yeah, glad to see that we're here.
Yes.
Yes.
The creator of AV Educate, we definitely want to say thank you to Omar. He's the one behind all of this that puts all this together. We're here to help with everything that we can help with, and Omar is pushing the slides as we go. So,
yay, Omar.
And you know me, the resident screw around IT guy. No, I'm
yay,
joking. But yeah,
Bodie.
that's me. And then, of course, the brains behind the operation, the one pushing all the stream out and doing everything and all the switching behind the scenes, the brains, Ed.
Yay, Ed.
And that voice you hear coming behind the background, I will just say, is Justin Butler. He is doing our lovely demonstration night on the Raspberry Pi Companion that you guys are so excited to see. But of course, as normal, we have house rules. House rules. We go live every Monday. I think we're going to be announcing tonight that is going to change. Our lovely co-host here is actually finding work, which is awesome. So we might be switching these to Sunday, correct?
That's pretty accurate. It's just if we're going to be doing it next week or the week after.
And we'll get that information out to you as it comes through.
Exactly.
Good
If you have any, and if anybody out there wants to become part of the panelists, have a topic you want to talk about or you feel good about on that previous slide there, it's not a big deal. It has the Zoom text line that you can get in. Yep, right there. So that way you can get yourself in here to help us out and shed some knowledge.
Yeah, we would love to have people join us. I'm going to drop that for you guys in the comments so that you can see it.
As always, due to the nature of streaming, we're always about 40 seconds behind, 30 seconds behind, somewhere around there, and it goes up and goes down based on the host streaming ability. So if we don't get to it, we will get to it. Also, we are not every know-it-alls. You guys can ask as many questions because we learn from you. If we don't know the answer and you guys do, by all means, help us out. We don't know everything. That's why we're here. We're all learning together. So don't fear to ask any questions. No questions stupid.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And a shameless plug, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. Don't forget to follow AV Educate on all pages. And that's pretty much wraps up our normal starting slides. So I'm going to go ahead. Like I said earlier, Justin Butler is the one doing the Raspberry Pi Companion Stream Deck. He's going to show you how to pretty much program the Raspberry Pi to use Companion so you can use it as a stream deck for all your live gigs. So we'll head it over to Ed and see if he's got anything.
Cool. I think I'm excited for this. I bought a Pi kit. If anybody caught our impromptu live stream yesterday, we spent a little time talking about Pis and the things we're gonna build them. We compared different kits. It was kind of cool. So if you didn't catch that, you can go check that out after the stream. Don't go look at it now. And I'm excited for it. My kit, actually, I got kind of caught up in some stuff, so it's not built. So I'm going to have to come back and rewatch this to get my whole CompanionPi set up, ready to go. Omar, you got anything? Otherwise, I want to kick it to Justin.
I'm available for private sessions, too, just throwing that up.
Oh, nice.
I don't have anything to say, you guys. Thanks for bearing with us in the beginning here. I was having some technical issues on my side, so Bodie jumped in last minute with me. Obviously, one of my cameras was having a problem, so we switched over. But again, I don't have to take up too much of your time. Justin Butler, man, or Bodie, if you have anything else to say, I'll let you guys run with it, and we can get started.
So the only thing that I'll say before we jump into it, you can reach out to Justin for any companion stuff. I do know fun little quirks with these little Raspberry Pis. If you saw the little fun little thing we had yesterday, I have a Raspberry Pi 2 here. I also have a Raspberry Pi 1 kicking around somewhere. I can have these things and help you with coding these things for fun little retro Pis and little media servers and stuff like that. So don't hesitate to reach out to me, guys. I'll help you out with anything you need.
Yes.
And as always, I just want to welcome our panel, Andrew, Ori, Jason. Thank you guys for being here. I think Nick just had to step away for a minute, but Nick will be back later. And with that, I want to kick it over to Justin.
All right. Fantastic. Good stuff. Well, thank you guys for having me. Not usually a presenter, usually behind the scenes person, but then again, aren't we all? So, hopefully we'll get through this painlessly and without too much awkwardness. But anyway, so Raspberry Pi. I actually didn't build my first Pi until a few months ago. Kind of fell in love with it as far as using it with Companion. And I actually built the second one, which I won't go too much into because we'll easily spin off into a tailspin on that. But built 2 systems so far. I love them. They're great systems, like Chris said. Chris probably knows a little bit more about the Pi in the coding side, but I've taken to the Companion aspect of it pretty decently. In fact, I've got 2 here, and I'm using one as our demo walkthrough tonight. And then I've actually got my main one, which is actually running vMix, which is running this session. So I couldn't use that one because it's actually in use. So I'm going to have a PowerPoint deck here, just more as much for me as it is for you guys, just to help me kind of keep on track. Because again, I'm not a real big presenter, but I'm going to get through this as best I can. We'll have some, I've got some slides in here. So when we get to the end of a section, if you guys got questions or comments, we'll try to corral them there. I know that people are going to have input and stuff that pops up, and we'll get through that best we can. The first few slides I'm going to go through is just some of the basic stuff. A lot of you probably already know this information. Just what is Companion, what is Raspberry Pi, but just for the sake of somebody walking off the street who doesn't know anything, I'm just going to kind of go through this just as a general go around. So what is a CompanionPi? CompanionPi system is a Raspberry Pi SBC running bit-focused companion software. Why would you want this kind of setup? And this is speaking from somebody with a show background experience directly. This setup allows for a standalone show controller system that runs independent from your other broadcast or show computers. So previously, prior to me setting up my Pi, I would have Companion running on one of my 2 show machines that are sitting just to my right here. And so those show machines are often very busy doing tasks like editing speakers' decks or transcoding and coding video, all sorts of different stuff.
And I'm going to interrupt for a second. If you haven't seen this man set up in some of the pictures he's posted, he has a killer setup for his stream PCs and his companion PCs and his mounts and things. They're actually really cool looking, and I have to give you kudos for that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it all goes to my OCD backstage and video world. It's just, it's like ingrained. So I brought that home with me. And since I haven't been out using this stuff, I'm like, well, let's all set it upstairs at home. So, but thank you. Yeah. So anyway, show machines, very busy. And I've had instances where those show machines, they're transcoding and coding video. It's very processor intensive. So, your processor's hitting at 100 trying to encode video. And then I've got my Stream Deck here, and I'm controlling 4 graphics machines, 2 Playback Pro machines, and you go to hit a button and nothing. You get a delayed cue or no cue, and then you're just like scrambling trying to hit the button on the keyboard of the device, and it's just not good. So with the CompanionPi system, that gives you a dedicated system that all it does is run Companion. So for those of you that know Companion, that's great. It's literally the same exact thing. You're just running it on this tiny little 3-inch by 2-inch little box. That's really straightforward. For those of you who don't know what Companion is, it is software that controls. It was designed to work with surfaces like the Stream Deck. You can use it without the Stream Deck as well, but it's so you can control various items in the production world, lighting boards, sound boards. I, being a video graphics person, I used to control pretty much any video playback software you can imagine. They've written a code for it. Switchers, Blackmagic switchers, I've controlled those. You can control E2s, pretty much the whole Barco line. yeah, it's pretty great. Stacking commands. You can hit one button and queue 3 different machines or more to do multiple things. So that's what Companion is if you're not aware. And so with that, I'm going to skip forward here. So what is a Raspberry Pi SBC? For those of you that aren't familiar with the actual device, SBC stands for single board computer. It's kind of a picture there on the right. Single board computer is a complete computer with a single circuit board with microprocessors, memory, input, output, and other features of a functional computer, all, like I said, a 3-inch by 2-inch package. This here is an image of the Raspberry Pi 4, which is the current instance that's out right now. It's been out for about 2 years, I think. For Raspberry Pi 4B. So the operating system for these devices are written on micro SD cards. And just as a note, you can have different SD cards. So if you have a bunch of little micro SD cards, you can have different builds that do different things. So just for tonight, we're talking about CompanionPi. That has its own OS build. So there's other builds you can do. Like I said, I have a second system that's got 2 1-terabyte hard drives in it. It's just a file server. There's people, they've got something called RetroPi that I think Chris mentioned earlier, that runs old, like Atari style, can't think of the word I'm looking for, but old style games, arcade games.
It's an emulator.
Yes, thank you. And Chris probably knows more about that. I haven't tried doing one of those yet. When I'm done with the memory card that I'm using for our demo tonight, I'm probably going to try that in one of my 2 machines here, just because curiosity and time. Still got some time on my hands. I haven't really got any shows scheduled yet, but working on that. So there is a note. So if you want to have different
builds. You have a question real quick?
Oh, do we have a question already?
Oh no, I was just going to say, you mentioned that that it's the different OSs that you put on the card. What's the OS that would normally run on a Pi?
The default OS is they call it the Raspbian OS, which is a Unix Linux type build. It does have a desktop interface. There's not a ton that you can do because, again, while this is a great little device, it's not going to be like per se like my desktop rig or even my 2 laptops here. So it's not going to be something that you're going to want to use for heavy graphic or CPU intensive stuff, but it will function as a computer with a desktop if you hook a keyboard and a mouse up to it. So that is an option that's available. That's the default that comes, from Raspberry or Pi or the Raspberry, the designers of the device. So they do have that software. My other machine kind of runs on that has my network accessible storage system installed on it. So I do have that on that system. The CompanionPi image, the way that they built it and modded it, it doesn't come with that desktop interface. And I personally wouldn't want it to anyway, because I just want it to focus on running my Stream Deck and controlling my plethora of show machines and switchers and all that. So yes, that is an option.
Copy. Great. Thank you. I think Andrew had a question too.
I was just going to clarify, Raspbian is a Linux-based operating system.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so I won't spend a whole lot of time on this slide. I just threw this in so that everybody could take a look at it. These are the specifications of the Raspberry Pi 4B. The only thing I'll kind of point out that has changed recently is they started with the 2 gig and 4 gig RAM option. And then just since I built mine, they've also come out with an 8 gig memory option. The 4 gig runs CompanionPi more than fine. And I'm going to get into kits. And for those of you that don't have a Pi system yet, they're looking to get one set up, I'm going to cover that next. But the 8 gig, there's nothing wrong with more memory. But if you're looking to stay within a budget, it's, not a necessity. But just going to point that out as a difference. But the rest of this stuff here is pretty straightforward on the slide here. And obviously you can look it up as well later if you want to know more about the specifics. But it's got a quad core, a little ARM processor in it. So, it's not bad for its size, really.
And then Andrew?
I was just going to say that the 8 gig is only useful if you're running 64-bit operating systems. So there's no reason to spend the extra money on the 8 gig at this point. Maybe in a year or two when they kind of get their 64-bit operating system up and running a little more mainstream, then it'll be helpful. I don't believe that Companion will run on the 64-bit at this moment. So you don't waste your money on the 8 gig at this point.
Exactly. That's basically in a nutshell what I was trying to say without saying it, but Andrew said it perfectly. So there you go. So that leads us into selecting and building your Raspberry Pi. I recommend personally, and this is just my opinion, so feel free to take it or not. That's fine. For the first time builder, I recommend kits, and that's just because they put everything together for you, and yours kind of remove the guessing of, are these things going to work together? The kit for the first Pi that I built, that's actually running my Stream Deck and this show that I'm doing right now with you guys tonight, is this kit right here, and that's the Cana kit. I did buy it from Amazon here, so this is the exact listing that I bought, and it comes with all these items that you see here. It comes with the case, the power cord, the HDMI to mini HDMI conversion cable, the heat sinks to put on the CPU and the RAM and stuff like that. It gives you the power supply. There's a little fan that goes in the top of the case, and then it comes with the Raspberry Pi as well as the memory card and this memory card reader as well.
One thing I want to interject real quick: when you're buying your kits for the Raspberry Pi, make sure that when you're buying your kit, you are checking a good kit representative. Another good one is Labist. They do Raspberry Pi 4, Raspberry Pi 3, things like that. But you have to make sure that when you're ordering your kit, that in the description it doesn't state that they'll send you a lesser model or anything like that. Because, like, for instance, I did go for the 8 gig Raspberry Pi 4 kit. They were out of stock and only sent me a 4 gig one. It'll work for what I'm trying to do it with, but I wanted the 8 gig for particular reasons. But the most important thing about ordering a kit, and the reason why I recommend ordering a kit, is because of the power cable that comes with it. The power cable that comes with it is specifically designed for Raspberry Pis to not overvolt the CPU. It also has an on-off switch because as a normal computer, it doesn't have an on-off switch. So, like, for instance here, I don't know if you can see that very well on mine, but this cable right here, you can hear the click. That's the on-off switch for the cable. The reason why this is so important, if you overcharge a Raspberry Pi board, you fry the whole thing. It will short circuit the whole board. It'll fry it, make it no good. So your $100 purchase goes out the window. So I always recommend for any starter using a pre-built kit with all of your plugs and cables and everything, so you don't burn your board out.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Chris. Yep, I agree with Chris in that fact. And that's why, again, I do suggest. Now, you don't have to get this particular kit. This is just a kit that I have personally purchased and I'm utilizing right now. So there are different kits out there. Feel free to research and check reviews as much as you like. And like I said, I've got time right now. I'm not really doing shows, so I mean, I can even help you, Chris. Might even be able to give you some tips too on choosing your kit. But this is a good kit, like for your first kit. Like I said, I have 2 of these machines. My second one, I actually kind of pieced together myself using various pieces from other places around Amazon and whatnot to make my little server box. So that's pretty simple for that.
And I'll just say I went ahead and got the same kit. This is what it came. I ordered it last week. It came a day later, and this was the kit that Justin recommended. So I immediately went to Amazon because I completely trust him in his wisdom to tell me what kit to get. So that's what the Cana kit will look like. And it came, it had everything I need. It's pretty cool. And the heat sinks, actually, I was surprised Bodie didn't mention the heat sinks. So
I
the
was
heat
getting
sinks,
ready to come in with that.
Yeah, the heat sinks with that kit actually have thermal paste on them, as opposed to just having like a little 3M sticky. So
yeah, my kit that I ordered, it came with heat sinks, but the heat sink kit that it came with, it was just a 3M stick on the back of it, and it's black. So it looks like it's thermal paste, but what you do is if you just slightly touch it, if it doesn't leave a sheen on your finger when you touch it, it's not thermal paste. So you want to take that off. You can order $5 thermal paste pads off Amazon. It's like $5 for sheets or like $10 for 3 sheets. And you can cut them to fit that little heat sink to put them on. But you want to make sure you are using thermal paste of some sort, or else it's absolutely doing you no good.
Absolutely. Those are very good points. And yeah, because if you buy a Raspberry Pi by itself, like I've bought, those heat sinks don't come with it. They don't put them on for you. You just get that board, and it's up to you, how you want to put that on. And part of the reason for that is with these Pis, they make a lot of different, what they call hats, that will go on these GPIO pins that are over on the right part of the left part, looking at this picture in my slide deck here. They will snap on top of that to give you different functions, PoE, if you want to do power over Ethernet. I've got a power board in my server, one that I built, that sits on top of that has a little fan pass through to cool the processor and stuff below. So that's the reason why they don't do that. But yeah, you definitely want to put heat sinks on those items. All right.
Just another suggestion for a really good case is the Flirt case. You got the FLIRC case, or Flirt, anyway, however you say it. Flirt cases, the heatsink is part of the case itself. The case is made out of metal, so they're really nice and very small. So that's one I really like.
Oh yeah, I believe I've seen those. Yeah. So there you go. Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of options out there. There's no kind of real wrong way to go. Everyone's kind of got their tastes and their preferences. So. But as long as you have some sort of heat protection, this particular kit, the Canon kit, it's got the 3 heat sinks, and there's a little fan that vents out of this little Raspberry Pi logo on the top. So I've got the heat sinks and the fan. For the purposes of what we and the AV and show world would do, if you can get a case with a fan, that would just be my recommendation, because sometimes we're sitting there for 10, 12 hours a day. Especially like in the graphics world, running slides and, whatever you're doing in show. So just to keep that device as cool as possible will preserve its lifespan. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on that. So, and you've heard from the panel, so I couldn't agree more. So, and that last part there, if you do get this particular kit, there's some guides here. So if you're going back through this, links to the Raspberry Pi help page and their setup, they can walk you through there. There's also a YouTube video that I watched that you can get to this link here, where there's a gentleman that puts it through, and you can kind of like watch him put it together. So just to cover for everybody with their different comfort levels of assembling this equipment, I just wanted to give everybody a fair option to decide how they want to learn how to put it together, or maybe you want to put it together without any guides. It's up to you. If you're that adventurous, that's fine as well. So that kind of brings us to the end of, and I know we already kind of had some input and stuff. So that just covers the general of what is this setup? Why would you want this setup? And kind of what to choose to do this setup. So I don't know if there's anybody else that has any questions or feedback before we move on to kind of getting into actually working with these devices and setting them up.
Go ahead, Chris.
Real quick, I just want to say, anybody that's wanting to learn how to code these or play with these devices, the best thing about them is it's an SD card that's storing the information. So if you don't code it right and something doesn't work, you can always start over. So it's not life or death scenario. If you don't code it right, it crashes the whole machine. That's the end of it. You can pull it right out, delete it, reformat it, go back in and keep going. You could have your machine do different things based on the SD cards you have. You could have 4 SD cards with different programmings on it for your Raspberry Pi and pop them in when you need to pop them in. So if you want to get adventurous and you want to learn how to code these things, it's not as scary as it is, because if you mess up, you just delete the card, you delete the card, put it back in, and start recoding it again. It really doesn't affect it much from there. So.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's my thing. Is it's almost like and we were talking about this earlier. It's almost like the old video game consoles where you pop the cartridge out, put a different one in. I mean, and with SD cards as cheap as they are, I mean, you can get 32 gig cards, on Amazon for less than $10. I mean, it gives you endless possibilities to play around with the different builds and systems that are out there. So, absolutely, thank you, Chris.
Omar,
right.
you had a question?
Yeah, so I got one from the Facebook community. Michael A. Cassidy's asking, are the PowerPoints going to be available for download, the ones that you were presenting with?
Oh, well, yeah, they'll be in the video, and then I can also publish it as a standalone playthrough through PowerPoint, and I can get that over to Omar, so he should be able to get that up for you guys for anyone who's interested.
Perfect. I'll spread it out one.
All right, everyone else, any other questions? Just want to make sure everybody has a chance to.
No, I think we're
Pretty
good.
straightforward.
For now.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward stuff. So now we're gonna get into the more meaty part of this. All right. So I'm not sure how many people out there. I know there's a few that have reached out to me or that I've spoken with that are going to be following along in real time. So I'm going to try to keep a good pace, but not go super fast so that people's heads don't spin. So for anyone who's following along at home, we're going to start getting into kind of actually getting this stuff set up. I do have some demos of stuff planned to go through this with all of you. I don't know how well it's going to come across Zoom because we were previewing it earlier and some of my other views on my desktops here, but we'll do the best we can. But I've got most of this in the deck here, so we'll get started. So when you're going to get set up with the, let me go back to PowerPoint. So setting up the CompanionPi operating system. So the CompanionPi, when I say CompanionPi operating system, it is a modified version of the Raspbian OS. And I know I was talking about this earlier. So basically, it's just to run Companion. There's no desktop GUI that you will find on the actual Raspbian OS. And that's, like I said, for what we're doing with this, if you're using this for Companion, at least on this particular image, that's all you're going to want it to do. If you're wanting to have that desktop version, that's what Chris was talking about, and have another SD card and pop that one in. Now you can't run them at the same time, so that's when you get into maybe building other Pi systems, which you'll find after doing the first one that you'll probably want to build a second or third one. So that's where you're going to want to get into a separate system from there. So the CompanionPi, and again, I don't know how this is we'll try this, and then if it just looks like garbage, we'll go back. But there's the GitHub is where Bitfocus Companion kind of lives. That's where they keep all their documentation, all their files and everything. The actual Companion image is here. I've got a shortened link in the deck here. So if you are following along from home, I don't know if you want to grab that real quick, that short link right there, because the actual link is very long, and these should be popping into the chat. I believe Omar has these. If not, I can get them out.
Yes, they're there right now as we were
Beautiful.
talking. We've been posting them, so they're in the comments if anybody's looking for them. Just checking the comments on the live side. All those references he's made so far, we posted in the comment section for you to look at yourself.
Awesome. It's a beautiful thing. All right, so I'm going to go back here. So the latest image that's out of the CompanionPi OS is from July 2nd, 2020. And it's where it says image here. And you just give that a click and it's going to download. Now, it is a decent sized file. It's about 1.48 gig. So depending on how fast your internet connection will depend on how fast that downloads for you. I believe I already have a copy of it here. Make sure it's not the same one. So if you're following along at home, I'll just give you a second, get that file downloading. Again, it shouldn't take too long to download. Make sure you have your SD card ready. If you have a reader that you need to put it in, if you're using a laptop, most of those will have a regular sized
I just want to let everybody know, if you're watching along, if Justin gets ahead of you, the rebroadcast of this will be available on the AV Educate page. If you click on the live tab, you can find all of the past episodes of AV Tech Talks, including this one that'll be ready as soon as it's over. So if you get lost, don't worry. You'll be able to find your way by watching the replay. And if you have questions, please get them into the chat, the comments on the Facebook Live, and we'll make sure we try to get to those for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let me make sure this is not the same one that's downloaded, because I already did have. All right, I think this is the one that. So while that's going, I'm going to go ahead, move forward here, and then we're going to come back to that when that's downloading. So when you do get the file downloaded, you're going to need to get it on your micro SD card. Now, there's many different ways to do this. I'm sure Chris can probably tell you a few different ways. There's some other people probably out there that have their methods. I've really come to like this program called Etcher by Balena, Balena, and there's the link there, which I'm sure will be popping into Facebook. And the app looks like this here on the left, and it's pretty much as simple as what you're looking at there. It's go find that file that we're downloading, select your target, which is your flash drive, which we're going to do in a minute, and then you hit that flash button.
Etcher is the best way to do it, by the way. Etcher is the simplest. It's multi-OS, so it doesn't necessarily have to be Windows. It can be Mac. It can go across all platforms, and it's very simple, plug and play. It grabs your files and puts them where it needs to be. It also puts them on root files, does everything for you. Etcher is actually really good. One thing I do want to add to this also, Jared Sams did make a great point that we should bring up. If you are going to be using a Pi 4 for any of the companion or anything like that, you are going to want to cool it somehow, some way. You are going to need to cool it. These little buggers will get hot, so you are going to want to cool it. So that's why we were talking about fan cases and heat sinks and things like that. So you definitely want to cool it. There are some cool cases, like Andrew said, the Flicker case is actually a really cool case. I actually have seen those before. Jared Sams did post a link in there for some Zebra Virtue fan cases. You're definitely going to want to get a case with a fan in it for it to give you the best operational, especially in tight little quarters and things like that. If you're not cooling it down or having some type of airflow over it, it'll pretty much melt the board.
And while we're talking about that, which orientation do you position the fan? Do you position so it's sucking the hot air out, or that it's drawing air in?
Out. You want it to take the air that's inside that case and get it out.
So the cases, like for instance, this case that I have here for my 4, I don't know if he has his available, but like for instance here, see the fan is on the top there. It's going to draw the hot air out, and there's finning right here. So what it's going to do is as it's drawing the hot air out, it's pulling the cool air in at the same time. So it's pulling cold air in, pulling the hot air out. So it's going to cool the entire thing down while it's running. Not every case is like this itself, but that is most cases. That's how they are designed to be.
Yes, exactly. And I couldn't have said it better myself. Absolutely. Yeah. And again, like I said, was saying a little bit ago, for doing the production side in our world, we're going to have these things running a lot. I've been on show sites with mine recently already, just to do a few, and it's sitting there on the whole time, because I got to have your controls up the whole time. You got to be able to control your switcher, your video machines, all that. So on a long day, like you'll know. I mean, mine right now has been running most of the day, and it doesn't even really feel hot at all. But again, I have heat sinks and the fans. So just to drive that home, definitely want to cool with that. So, well, all right. Well, while we were covering that, our file has finished downloading. So just for everybody following along at home, I'm going to do this live for you. So I'm going to come back over here, and I actually have Etcher pulled up here. And I apologize again if this comes across blurry or whatnot on my preview. It looks great, but who knows what Zoom and or Facebook is doing to it. So Like I said, all of my steps are going to be in the deck as well. So here I have Etcher pulled up, and I'm literally just going to go in to my download folder. There's the CompanionPi 2020.0702.img.gz, 1.5 gig, and I'm just going to open that file. It's loaded into Etcher. This particular card that I'm using is going to be this 8 gigabyte card right here. And it already picked that one for me because it's the only flash drive I have plugged into this computer right now. And then I'm literally going to just click flash. It may give you a pop-up about Windows command processor. If you're on Windows 10, just click OK. That's fine. And it's writing. It's going to decompress the file, and then it's going to write it. Now, this process can take some time. So this particular card is kind of iffy. So this is actually like a fourth card that I have just to demonstrate this. So if this is like going to take too long, we'll just move on. And I've already got a fresh copy of CompanionPi in my demo machine. So we'll move forward with that. But here, as you might be able to see here, it's saying that it's going to be done in 11 to 12 minutes. So if you're following along at home, like I said, we'll try not to go too fast. We're going to come up here to a moment where everyone's going to be able to ask questions, and we'll have some discussion. So you might be able to catch up there. But I'm going to let this card kind of write in the background. It doesn't always take this long, but it just really depends on the write speed of your card. So that's why I do recommend, like the card that comes in that Canon kit is a pretty fast card. I think it's like 98 megs a second write speed for a micro SD. So that's fairly decent. So if you have an older micro SD that you're trying to use with this that may not be as fast, then this process can take a lot longer, and you may see slower performance in your boot up to the actual CompanionPi system. All right, so I'm going to let this go. So if you're at home, hopefully, and you're wanting to follow along, hopefully you're kind of rolling along this process here. The card process, as I just said, can take up to 30 minutes. It really depends on the card that you have. This card that I'm using to demo this write process is like an older full-size card. It's not even a micro card. That card I already have loaded in a demo machine, and it is much faster than this. All right, so when this process is complete, you're going to want to put the micro SD card in the Pi. The micro SD card slot is in the opposite end of where the USB ports are, just in case you're not familiar. And for the first boot, now you don't always have to do this, but for the first boot, I would recommend connecting a monitor, keyboard, and mouse and a network cable with internet. You don't always have to have internet with these. A lot of times on shows, I'll go out to a show site, we don't have internet if the client doesn't pay for it, if it's not running through Video World, if it's not, you don't have Wi-Fi. You don't need internet to run Companion. You do need internet to update Companion. So I would recommend anytime that I'm going to go out and use mine on site somewhere on a show, I'll update it before I leave the house. So just to kind of throw that out there, but we typically do that anyway, Blackmagic software and how much fun that is. Not to go on a tangent on that, but just have all that stuff downloaded before you get on site.
And for anybody who, we'll see if it keys it out. Yesterday it did, it's going to do a key. So anybody who isn't sure, you can see you have your USB and Ethernet ports on this side. And then if I flip it over, this little thing right here, that is where the micro SD card goes in, right on the bottom.
Yes, thank you, Ed.
My green screen likes to make it look really actually kind of cool. So
no, that is
the best Raspberry Pi on the market.
That's the clear Pi. That's like a special edition one you've got there.
Exactly.
No, thank you for that, Ed. And I would be holding mine up except for the fact that it's plugged in and running, and I don't want it to shut down. So thank you guys for filling that part in for me. So this card is still writing. So I'm going to kind of just go ahead. So if you're at home, I hope that you have a faster card than this card I'm using for this writing demo, and you've got less than 7 minutes. to go. So first boot and configuration, and I'm actually going to go live to a fresh card that I formatted with CompanionPi here. But I'm going to cover some ground rule stuff here. And Chris, I know you're going to anyway, but please jump in here as you see fit. The Raspberry Pi / CompanionPi, they utilize Unix-Linux based commands. And I'm going to kind of we'll cover some more of that as we go. Now, the default.
I will jump in here. It absolutely does use Linux-based commands. It is Linux-based. It is also SH, which, if anybody knows anything, it's called. A lot of people call it shush files. Shush file based, so that means you can remotely control it. It can do a menagerie of things. For this, you want to use the Linux-based operating system. You can load Ubuntu, Windows 10 IoT. You can load all kinds of operating systems on this, but for this, you want to use the Raspbian. In order to do it, it's the easiest one that it's going to communicate with. I personally am a Linux. I can do Linux code, so for me, I prefer Ubuntu on the Raspberry Pi because I can program it to do whatever I want. Linux is an open source software that most of your scripts for all your programs you use anyway are written on. So if I have one recommendation for everyone here, learn how to write script and you can control anything you work on.
Very nice. Very nice. Absolutely. All right, so now eventually when we do get to the login prompt here, the default username is Pi and the default password is Raspberry. That's pretty much universal of the Raspbian OS anyway. So those are going to be your default credentials, typically with most of the Raspbian-based builds. So if you're wondering how you're going to log in, take note of that. It will come into play. It is recommended to change that password as that is your system admin password. Everybody recommends to do that. I recommend that if you're worried about people getting, like he said, a SSH, protocol. That's how and we're going to get into that, how I control mine in headless mode. I don't always have a keyboard and mouse hooked up to mine. I really don't have a need because if everything's working fine, it will load straight into Companion. Your Stream Deck will load straight up to its the last set of buttons you were on, and you'll be able to pull up Companion in your browser just as you would if you were running it on your local machine. So I don't really have a need to have those things hooked up to it. But if I do, like when I go over the update process or rebooting it, I do use SSH. So if you're worried about people on a network getting a hold of that, change the password, and we're going to cover that here momentarily on actually how to do that. It's a fairly simple process once you get to know some of these Unix and Linux commands. So when using Unix-based commands, the sudo command runs your line input with admin privileges. Now, I don't know a ton about this. Chris can blow me away with his knowledge of probably the Unix-Linux-based language. I'm not a coder or anything like that. I just know what I've learned to get through, operate, and maintain these systems that I've built, these Pi systems. The command line to change your admin password is very simple. You'll just type sudo and passwd. And like I said, once I get through this slide, we're going to go through and I'm going to fire up my demo Pi machine and we're going to see what it looks like, first boot. So you'll enter your new password, press enter that password again, press enter, and then you've changed your password. And then you can also change your password in what they call the RaspberryConfig utility, and we'll go over that as well. And that it's not really fully graphical, but it gives you a menu to kind of go down through and select your options if you're, a little bit pensive about doing everything by line command. Now, by default, the CompanionPi will default to DHCP IP assignment when it boots up. So this is where I recommend having a keyboard and mouse hooked up to it. I mean, unless your network is small enough to where you'll be able to find it really fast. My network where I'm at here has a lot of things on it. So it is kind of tricky for me to try and track it. It's needle in a haystack. So that's why I recommend, if you're unfamiliar, especially if you're new to this, have a keyboard and mouse hooked up to it so you're working directly on it. So And then we're going to get into IPs as well, because a lot of you that are in the show AV world like me, you're like, well, I need all my stuff to have IP addresses that I give it. And good news, we can do that, and we're going to get into that. So with that in mind, I am going to switch inputs here. The screen will go black because it is a capture card. Black magic. So I'm going to switch on my Pi demo machine now and pray that it does what it's supposed to do. Okay. So we're going to go through the boot process here. So all this fun stuff is what you're going to see if you have a monitor and everything hooked up directly to your Pi and you've installed the Pi operating system. And basically it's just, this is what you would see in Windows if they had it set for you to see. It's just it loading all of its services. All right, so now we're logged in, and unfortunately, I don't think there's a real good way for me to enhance this. In fact, I'm going to have to move this window here so I can see it. Now, I haven't set it up yet, but typically it will have a line up here. Oh, no, here it is. It's buried it up here. I don't know if you can see it, but a little ways in the lower thirds here, it's telling me that my IP address, what my IP address is. So if you do have a DHCP setup and you are going to have a monitor hooked up to this, it will tell you what the IP address is. Just, you know, for accessing the regular companion portal where you set up all your devices and all that. So you're going to come to this prompt here, and it's going to say CompanionPi login. And as we went through in my slide, that's going to be Pi. So just type Pi. And I have to change my KVM switch. That's why. So bear with me here. Okay. So I type Pi, and it will type over itself. It is Unix Linux, so it's, you know, not always the prettiest, but, and then it's going to say password. So if you recall, our password is Raspberry.
Can I suggest 1234? That seems pretty
Lord.
secure. Or password with a capital P and the number 1.
Thank you, Ed. That's yeah.
No one will guess it.
So once you log in, it's going to spit some information here. It's going to say last login. It's going to give you your build of the OS. It's going to give you some, you know, if you want to see your license, here's how to do that. There's some stuff that our friends over at Companion at BitFocus have put in here. And basically, they'll tell you if you want to get to the admin portal. Here's it's basically the IP address :8000, which is the same as it was when you run it locally. It's just instead of localhost or 127.001, it's the actual IP address of your Pi. So that part's going to be the same. And then so now we're at basically the prompt of our Raspberry Pi system. So from here, we can go, like I said, if you want to change the password, you can go straight to sudo, PASSWD. And now, hey, it's asking me for a new password. So this is a demo build that I'm going to completely blow away when we're done. So for Ed, we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. Enter. Press enter. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yay.
And now I've changed my admin password. It's really that easy. Not everything is easy with this command line stuff, but that part is. And if you recall from the slide, I also mentioned something called RaspberryPi. So we're going to type in sudo. You're pretty much, most of the stuff that you're going to do, you're going to put sudo in front of it. And again, that's just because you want to execute your commands as an admin with top privileges. So sudo space raspi-config. And you're going to get this screen, which is kind of a GUI screen. Not necessarily. So here you can also change the password. Option 1 is to change the password for the Pi user. There's some network options here in this menu. You can change your host name. I typically will let it be CompanionPi. Now, I already have one on my network called CompanionPi, so I'm going to put a 2 after this one so that no confusion happens for the duration of this show. Most of this other stuff you won't really need to mess with. There's some localization options you can set. Overclocking, I personally really haven't messed with that. I don't know if Chris wants to add anything to that here in a moment, but there's some options in here. If you're not sure what it is, I wouldn't mess with it unless you've reached out to somebody who knows about it or have done your own research.
Omar, you got some questions, brother?
Yeah, Justin, sorry, just to take it back a quick second. Jared Sams mentioned if you're going to use the Raspberry Pi 4, which is the only model supported by Companion, you need to use an actively cooled case. I have several Companion Pis installed and they're all encased in this. So he's saying, and I'm just wondering if anybody else has any similar experience where you have a Pi, maybe it's a 3 and you're having problems with it, and it's maybe that's why it's not working. He's saying only the Pi 4 is the supported by Companion.
Yes, you generally you're going to want to for this use. Yeah, it's got to be a 4. They say that you might be able to get it to run on the older boards, but it's not recommended. And I myself surely wouldn't trust a live show environment controlling 5 or 6 machines with something that might work. So yeah, that is absolutely true. Stick with the 4B, at least for now. That is the current model. Like I said, like we already covered, 4 gig runs Companion just fine. It's not really necessary to get the 8 gig at this time. If you want to get that to build to do with other stuff, cool, but not really necessary for here.
So as I always throw in my fun little factoids, you're talking about sudo. Sudo stands for super user do. That's what the Linux command means. So what you're doing is you're telling the Raspberry Pi or the operating system that you are the super user, do what I say.
Yeah. So you're telling it who's boss, which that's what you do. So absolutely. Thank you, Chris.
And I got one more for the panel here, for Justin, if you guys want to answer this. It's slightly off topic. I'll mention that right now so that if anybody has another question like this, we might avoid it. I'll give this one as a freebie right now. But Giovanna Lopez is asking, what are the best uses for a Raspberry Pi, live stream, digital signage player? What's the limitations of it? Again, this is a little bit off topic from what we're doing right now, but I think it's a good question, and I'll let that one slide for right now.
The limitations on a Raspberry Pi are endless. If you can code it and it can work, it will work. There's hardly anything that it can't do aside from it being over processed on the CPU side and requiring a GPU to operate it. The Raspberry Pi 4 is actually the only Raspberry Pi that you can run OBS on. So you can have your own H.264 encoder on a Raspberry Pi if you can figure out how to get it to shell and everything like that in order to send the stream signals everywhere it needs to go. You can literally stream from the little Raspberry Pi. So there's tons of things you can do with the Raspberry Pi. It's what you can understand and what you can code. I'm sure there's a bunch of Raspberry Pi forums and groups that you can get into that do have streamlined Linux codes, things like that can help you get to where you're trying to go with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I personally, unless you're going to get like an external GPU, there's not a whole lot like video wise that I would do with it. But to like what Chris said, like for the Companion use, I have a file server set up on my second one. It does those things really well actually for the size, and I'm able to throw these 2 cases and they fit in my Pelican. I have a 1535 as my showcase, and so there's a finite around a room in there and it's fairly full anyway, but I'm able to throw both of these in there and they fit just fine. But so yeah, like what Chris said, definitely I'm leery of the video performance of it, just compared to I've got dedicated graphics and these 3 other machines I've got here, so I wouldn't do anything super video intensive.
Jason, you got a question, brother?
Yeah, real quick, just on what you were saying, Chris, for anybody out there who wouldn't understand how to code these the way that they needed to and knew what they wanted to do? Are there people out there besides you, Chris, or a company or anything that you can tell them what you want and they can code them for you? Or is it generally up to the person who owns it?
No, it's just Chris and Justin. That's it. No one else.
Yeah. So, and I see per H Roan, I'm assuming is how you pronounce it. It has a built-in H.264 deck encoder on board, so video playback is good, but there's no onboard RTC, so timing on long clips might be an issue, exactly like he's pointing out right there. But it still has the ability to do it, is my point. So if you can configure it and you can code it, it can do it. As far as a group, Jason, or somebody that does it, I'm sure there's people all over the place trying to make money somewhere. I'm not going to sit here and say there's not. The difference is who do you trust? And what do you trust? You're going to pay somebody to do something for you. And if it doesn't come out the way it comes out, or you don't understand how to operate it, then it's no good to you. So I can send you like Ed wanted to do here, which I still kind of laugh about. Ed wanted me to get this all fixed up with Companion on it and send it to him. If he didn't know how to use this, what good's this going to do him? So I can sit here all day long and program these things for everybody and send them all over the world and charge $250, $300, $400 for them. But if you don't know how to operate it, what good does it do? And most of the kernels that you're going to use to get into it are going to be pseudo files. So in order to boot most of the stuff up, you're going to pseudo file a lot of things and command process to get it going. Now, there is ways that I'm sure Justin will show you how you can pseudo code it to automatically open up to those programs. So as far as somewhere you can go to buy it, I'm sure there is. It's all over the place. It's just a matter of what you trust to do. You're always better off learning how to do the process, and so that way, if anything ever fails, you can always do it yourself and upload it, man.
I got some more Facebook comments. Justin, if we still have time, or
yeah, no, it's fine. Like I said, for the people that are following along at home, this gives them time to catch up if they're not.
Got it. So Pierre H. Roan mentions that minimum with the 4 is the 4 gigabyte for the Raspberry Pi 4. So those are like you need at least a 4 gigabyte card.
Yeah.
He also puts a mention in there that it has a built-in H.264 decoder on board. So video playback is good, but there's no onboard RTC. So timing on long clips might be an issue. So something to keep in mind for the community out there. Someone asked, and I apologize if I don't say your name right. Sharakanth Sarimam. It asks, do you use a mini touchscreen with a Pi for the live events?
No, that's funny because I actually, I believe Ed encountered somebody earlier today that had that, and I kind of did my best to point them in the right direction. I haven't personally done a build like that, and that's just because I have a Stream Deck XL, which I like very much. I'm using it for tonight right now, actually. But I did do some reading while I was helping out this individual earlier on that subject, and that is something that is possible because of the emulator that is built into Companion. It basically looks like a Stream Deck XL. It's just not, it's a touchscreen versus 32 buttons here. So that is something that can be done. I haven't done it myself. That's something that I might play with out of curiosity at some point, just after reading about it today. But that is something I know some individuals have successfully set up, and it does work. There's some a little bit of additional programming for the touchscreen portion of it. But once you get that set, then it's good to go. So yeah, that is an option.
Yeah, I've read a few things about that. But we also had one other question earlier. Sean had asked, why do you need Etcher? Is it because of the file format with Windows? So if we can just clarify.
So with Etcher, that is, and again, like I said, there's no wrong way to write that image to the card. There's lots of different software that will image an SD card, or make that a bootable SD card. I like Etcher just because it's really as simple as I showed. It's load the file, choose where it's going, hit the button and let it go, and it does a really great job. I've used it to do a few cards here, and I've never had any issue with it. It runs on my PC. It runs on my Mac. It's great. So that's the reason why I'm just personally demonstrating and recommending what I've used personally, but there's no wrong way to, image a card. If you've got a software that works for you or a method that works for you, by all means, use that method.
Andrew, you have something to add?
Yeah, a couple things. If you're not using Stream Deck, you can use any browser. Will work as a touchscreen. So if you have an iPad or something like that, that'll work. I have a touchscreen monitor that plugs into the Raspberry Pi directly, and that works great too because they have a couple of different emulators. They have a web emulator. They have a touchscreen emulator built into Companion that are fantastic for those purposes. So you don't necessarily have, you can do this whole thing quite inexpensively if you don't want to get into the Stream Deck right away. But Stream Deck is obviously the best way to do it, but there are alternates too.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you, Andrew. And I have used my iPad with the emulator before, and it does just as fast as like using my Stream Deck side by side. I've used both of them going to the same Companion instance, and there's literally no difference in latency between the two. So yes, that is an option. If you don't have a Stream Deck, don't want to buy a Stream Deck, you already have a tablet, it does work. So absolutely good stuff. So let me jump back over here.
I think Omar had something quick, and then we can let you move on. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to add on top of what Andrew just said, just for the community out there, if you guys aren't aware, Stream Deck is a great product, great platform. But like if you're trying to do cost savings, you get the Pi with you to help you kind of speed up your process. So you have instead of buying a whole new laptop to do all this, Companion has its own GUI system or user interface. You don't need the Stream Deck. So keep that in mind when you guys are going down this road. You don't have to go this whole route that we're doing here. This is just what we're comfortable doing, what we're sharing with you guys, and this is how we do it here. But like Justin was saying as well, there is an app version you can use that works just as effectively if you guys are trying to be low key, because we all understand money's tight right now with what's going on in the industry and with the world and everything. So just keep that in mind out there for you guys that are kind of new to this and playing catch up with us and going at Justin's speed here to get Companion up and running onto a Raspberry Pi. If you are having, you want to be cost effective, you don't need the Stream Deck, but we use it a lot. We all own one, so we're using that as our product.
Yep, absolutely.
And as we've just rounded the first hour, I just want to remind everybody on Facebook, if you have any more questions or comments, get them into the comment section so that we can get to those before the end of this hour, because we do a hard out at 9 p.m., even though we didn't do that when I did my talk. So we will follow that tonight, though. So we're going to let Justin get back to his with less interruptions, but keep those questions coming so we can get them in before the end.
Wow. And I was worried about filling the first hour, but now I don't feel so bad. All right. So like I mentioned earlier, hey, I like to have all my stuff with a static IP. So when I roll up on site at a show, speaking from an AV video tech position, I like to know what all my stuff is set as. And I'm going to put an asterisk now before we get into this, because I know someone's going to bring it up, because we just talked about this on here within the last few weeks. The network I'm on at this where I'm staying right now, I'm not the architect of it. So it is a 192.168.0 neighborhood, and all my stuff is compatible with that just for the purposes of being home. But yes, I did pay attention to the talk we had a couple weeks ago, and yes, that is very important. So just to get that out of the way. Anyway, static IP configuration. So if you wish to have your CompanionPi not receive an IP address, so we got to set up a static IP address. And the way that I go about this, at least from the CompanionPi version of the operating system, you're going to have to edit what's called the dhcp cd.conf file. So we're going to go in and do some more line commands here shortly. So if you're following along at home, to do this, we're going to do that sudo command. And then we've got another command, and I'm Chris, I don't know if you have the definition of this one, not to put you on the spot, but now we've got nano in there. And I believe that's a file directory call command, I believe. And you're going to point it, you're basically pointing it into the system files of your Pi system. And it's directory /etc/ and then there's the DHCP-CD file, .conf, I'm sorry. And then you press enter and you should see a screen pop up that looks something like this. And I'm going to jump over to my demo machine here in a second. And basically this is what your Ethernet settings for your Pi box are set up. And it kind of walks you through the process. If you kind of go through this and look at everything in the hashtag with the teal, it kind of tells you how to set it up. Like if you want an example static IP configuration, here's the stuff that you got to enter. But we're going to break down those commands piece by piece here, just to make sure everybody kind of understands what's going on.
And I'm sorry, Andrew, do you have something to add?
I just noticed that Chris has taken off, so I was going to try and answer that question. Nano is an editor, a command line editor within Linux, a simple editor to use as opposed to using text editor, whatever you might use on your computer. It's just a very simple editor.
Awesome.
That's what Nano means.
There we go. Like I said, I am not an expert on Unix Linux commands. I don't claim to be. I'm not going to pretend to be. So anybody who knows more, by all means, please throw your 2 cents in, because that'll be great. Anything to help everybody understand more kind of what we're going through. I've gone through this process a few times, but just enough to know how to administer my 2 Pi systems in this per case. So while you're in that screen, you're going to go through and basically you're going to type all this stuff out, and we'll go through it line by line here. So you're going to start down here at the bottom. So you're going to go to the bottom of that file, and it's below all of the teal example text that's there. And you're going to kind of write this out as you want it. When you type interface ETH0, some of this stuff kind of gives its away a little bit, but we'll go through it. That's going to apply the configuration to specifically the wired Ethernet port of your CompanionPi system. Now, these devices, they do have Wi-Fi in them. I have not used that feature on either of these myself because as a show system controller, I don't trust Wi-Fi. All my stuff is hardwired. I have my own switch I use on my tech table. And for my file server, I want the fastest connection possible. So I used my gigabit LAN connection. So I have not tried to use Wi-Fi on this. So I probably will not the best person to answer questions on that particular, if somebody's got questions on that. But we're dealing specifically with the Ethernet port in this instance. So we're telling the Ethernet port, we're about to give it some instructions. And the next line is going to be static IP address, and that's static space IP _ address and the equal sign. And that's what you want the IP address you want your system to have. And you'll notice at the end of that, and I'm going to cover this in a second, there's a /24, and that has to do with the size of your network and mapping. And I believe I have a part of my slide here that covers that. So your next line down is going to be static routers, and this is going to be your router. Now, I know on a show environment, and this doesn't really matter, I don't always have like my Wi-Fi router. I have an Airport Express that I keep in my Pelican. I don't always use that, but I will use the switch to connect all this stuff together. So whatever IP address that you do have for whatever router or show router that you use, you want to put that IP address in there. And that's just to kind of point it out for when you do need to have it go out to the internet to get updates, where it's going. Static domain name servers, that's the same. This is kind of a preference, dealer's choice type thing. I just put the same in as my router in again. It works for me. Some people may like Google servers 8.8.8.8. It's, again, this is a preference thing. This is just what I do myself. So the -24, that, like I said, that refers to the size of your network. 24 is common because IPv4, and I know we just did a talk on IP addresses, so this may be a little bit callback to that. It's written out in octets. The /24 allows the network bits and the host bits to split after 24 bits, which ends up being after the third octet. So basically, it's network stuff. Not to go off on another subject here, but just in case anybody was wondering why /24, that's why /24. And yes, you do need to put that in there. It won't work if you don't. And now once you're done with this configuration, you do Control X and then Y and enter on your keyboard. So I'm going to switch over to our demo machine. And it is doing stuff on its own. Oh, for some reason, it's wanting to change the password. Anyway, so I'm going to get out of this.
What? It didn't like my password choice?
No, it's just I didn't change my KVM switch, and I guess I'd hit some buttons on my keyboard, so I was doing stuff while I was behind the. So I'm going to call up that screen now. So that was sudo space nano /etc/dhcbcd.conf. And I may have made it mad. So, oh, nope. It was just thinking about it. So here's that screen that we were looking at on my slide. And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of keyboard arrow down, down arrow, down arrow. And I'm going to come down here to where the end of this file. I'm not sure if that's absolutely required, but that's just the way that I like to do it myself, just to make sure that I'm kind of clear of all this other stuff up here. And then I'm going to enter all this stuff in. And again, I'm going to use examples based on the network where I am located. So this is going to be you input, your stuff here. So I'm going to type in interface space ETH0. So I'm calling out the Ethernet card on my Pi. And I'll put a couple spaces in here. And then I'm going to put static space IP underscore address. Make sure I spell it right. Equals sign. And for my particular network, it'd help if I put the numlock on. Linux. Sorry about that. So
Justin,
I'm going to put.
do you have the ability to zoom in on that by any chance?
That's the thing.
I figured it was a tall order. No worries.
That's tricky. It's a black magic capture card that's pulling in HDMI, and I'm trying to see in vMix if it'll let me do it on the fly.
Hey, no worries if it can't.
I don't think it'll let me do it unless I completely close out this input and redo it.
Yeah, don't do that.
So that's why I put this stuff in the deck, because I was just like, what if my live demo kind of bombs for whatever reason, and it looks like that might be happening. But anyways, just for the people that are following along at home, hopefully maybe the audio part of this, as well as whatever you might be able to see, will still be helpful in some way. And again, I might be a little bit late, but I should have had vMix recording this, but I'm going to have vMix record from now on out. So I'm going to put in an IP address that's relevant to my network here. So again, nobody laugh. I know what I'm doing. It's 192.168.223. Just for the sake of getting through this. Static routers. So it's static space routers. And my router I know is 192.168.0.1. Enter. And static underscore domain underscore name underscore servers equals. I'm going to put the same thing as my router 192.168.0.1. And see, I already forgot my own instructions. -24 at the end of static IP address. -24. I'm sorry, /24. So now that I've told my Pi that you're going to have 192.168.0.223 as your IP address, and your router and domain servers are going to be the same, and that's pointing it to my router. So 192.168.0.1. So once you get to this point, you're going to do Control X, and it's going to say down at the bottom, it's going to ask you, do you want to save modified buffer? Answering no will discard changes. So it's a Y for yes, an N for no, or Control C for cancel. So I want it to save, and then it's going to say file name to write to, and it's going to show you that file name again, that /etc/dhcpd.conf again, and that's fine. You want that to stay the same, just press enter, and now it's done. So after that's done, to make sure that it actually boots up to that address that we assigned, and this is a code that I use as well when logging into this through another system, which I'm going to get to here very shortly, is there's our sudo command. That's our super user do command again. And reboot. Enter. And it's really more or less that simple. And now we're going to see all of our systems loading again. And that's going to take just a brief moment.
So, somewhat unrelated question kind of came in while we're talking about IP addresses. Is what's the simplest IP address to use if also controlling an ATEM switcher?
You got to have all your stuff in the same network, in the same neighborhood. I'm sorry. So if you're going to do 10 dot whatever, everybody's got to be in 10 dot whatever. You're going to do 192, 172, whatever neighborhood you're going to be in, you got to have everybody in the same network. I know we touched on this, and maybe not everybody was there. That's fine. We touched on this with the other Justin a couple weeks ago, but what he said, and if you haven't watched that talk yet, I would, shameless plug time, I would definitely recommend going back and watching that previous talk from a couple weeks ago, because he shared a lot of good stuff that even for me, who's been around for a while, I was like, oh yeah, that's a good point. So definitely check that out if you're kind of not sure about networking or you're looking for some networking practices. Definitely watch that talk because it was good.
Yeah, and I'm going to jump in there, Justin, and let you know. Same thing. So if anybody's looking for that talk that he's mentioning, it is in the comments right now. It's Data Networks is the talk of it. It's in the page if you want to see it. Michelson Newman, sorry. If you want to learn more about that, what your particular question is, I recommend you go back to that talk. It gets very in-depth, very detailed, and the 192.168 debate is real. You might want to jump in that part, have the discussion about it, and we'll comment there on your feedback and everything like that. But you're asking the same question that Justin's answering right now, or mentioning, that is in that talk, and that talk has a big discussion on it. So you can refer to that one in there. The link is up literally 2 comments above where you're at right now. So sorry, Justin, I'll let you go.
No, that's beautiful. Yes.
Sean also asked about the KBM switch. That's what you're using to talk across your machines, correct?
Yes. So I have in my Pelican when I go, because I'm mainly a graphics playback op in when I was working, and being able to control multiple machines and have a single point. Before I built the second Pi system, which if there's time, I'll cover why I built that at the end. But before that, I have a 4-port USB 3.0 KVM switch that I would hook up to my graphics machines, depending on how many I had. So if I had 2 PowerPoint machines on a show site and I had 2 Playback Pro machines, I could hook those 4 machines up to the switch, and then I could plug my my flash drive in from the speakers, pull all their stuff off, to the machines that way, and I have a keyboard and mouse I keep with my stuff that I can control those 4 machines from a single keyboard and mouse if I want. I just have to switch between the 4 sources. So I can get that link pulled up. I got it a while ago. It's made by StarTech Dock, but it's 4-port USB 3.0. I've been happy with it. So if you're somebody that needs something like that, or to use in that environment, or just to have at home to control multiple devices, I've had good experiences with it.
Great. Thank you.
All right, fair enough. So as you can see, we're back to our main boot screen here, or you may not be able to see. And again, I apologize. It may not be coming across as well for you. But we're back at our login screen for the Pi, the line command login. And as you can see here, it's now recognized that it's been renamed as CompanionPi 2. If you recall, I did rename it that when we went into that configuration screen. And it also tells me that my IP address is now 192.168.0.223. So my configuration of the DHCP CD file was successful, and it will now boot up with that IP address every time until I tell it otherwise. So again, that's the way I typically run mine, because I throw this in my Pelican along with my show machines and stuff. I take it out, throw my switch up, plug it in, Companion loads up, and I know that when I go into one of my work laptops here and go into my browser to get to Companion, I know that when I plug in that IP address, I actually have a bookmark. It's going to load my Companion admin screen with all my instances and devices. So like I said, you don't have to do this. If you're someone like, you want DHCP, you're going to have a router set up every time, and you're going to have a way of getting either through your router or having a monitor hooked up to your Pi directly to get that IP address for it, then by all means stick with DHCP. There's no right or wrong way to do it. I'm just giving you kind of the tools and the knowledge of how to set that. If you want it, if you're like me and you like to have all your stuff, what it is when you roll up. So with that,
Justin, I'll say one of the projects I want to do with a Pi after I've got my Companion set up is to make a DHCP server with a Pi, so that I can always bring that with me to get everything in line the way I want it to be when I show up on a show site. Screw up everyone else's IPs. They're gonna go. They're just gonna go off my little Pi DHCP server.
There you go. Yeah, no, and that will work too. And that's something that I may play around with when I get another build up here. And going back just a touch in the beginning, that's again the beautiful thing about this is if you get a handful of SD cards, you can get all these different builds up and be playing with this stuff, around your, you're pop the CompanionPi out, put in a regular one and play around with stuff like that. And then if you need to throw it in your bag and go do a show, just pop that other SD card back in and you're ready to go. So it does give you a decent playground for doing stuff like that. But yeah, that's interesting. You'll have to let me know.
And if you're going to make some DHCP pies there, Ed, your passwords are going to have to be a little bit stronger. Someone's going to take over the whole show.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4 might not work out for you.
Not anymore. Stop saying it.
Do we think there's nefarious people out there that would do something like that?
Never. No. Why would anybody do that?
You mean lighting versus video and audio? No, that never happens.
All right, I'm cut my mic off on that one.
Yeah, actually, I can say a buddy of mine who I used to work with a lot, he would, if I didn't log into the LS9 that the company we worked for had with my iPad first, he would jump in with his iPad, and the LS9 only lets you have one on at a time, and then he would mess with me during shows. So. Oh
wow.
Yeah,
like live during the show.
But yeah, he would pick channels that I wasn't using, but he'd start making things move and things like that. Yeah. Joe was a great guy.
So there you go. As Ed points out, pick good passwords and use them, or risk being sabotaged in live show
by your friends sometimes.
All right. So actually, that brings us to the end of this particular session. So we've already kind of had some discussion, but I will open it up now on this particular discussion section of IP address assignments and this part of the configuration. Any questions or discussion?
There's a comment. I'm not sure if the panelist is. So Pierre H. Roney is asking, or is saying, Companion does actually control a couple of KVMs, and then there's a couple questions about that. Does anybody have any feedback on which KVMs it controls? Top of their minds by chance? I don't. I have no idea.
I haven't used it in that particular capacity. I mean, honestly, I don't do as much with the KVM now that I've built this file server Pi, because that's kind of eliminating my single source for data input.
Yeah, so the KVM, well, okay, so the KVM switches a device which allows users to operate multiple computers using only one keyboard, monitor, or mouse. So if you don't know what a KVM is, that's what it is. I thought we were asking about specific ones, and I think he also shared a link that shows you which ones are supported. I've used a KVM once as a PowerPoint operator that someone gave me. It was great, but it was pricey.
Well, yeah, because if it's controllable by Companion, it's probably going to be one that's got a NIC card in it or a network card in it. And mine definitely doesn't have that. Mine is just 4 USB in and then 4 machine USB out. So I can have 4 USB devices into it. So keyboard, mouse, and then I can have 2 places for memory sticks. But if it's controllable by Companion, and especially like with this setup that we're talking about here, it'd have to have like a network port to be controllable, because everything that's going to be controllable through Companion's got to be on your network. It's all network. So that's the only thing I could probably say. But again, I'm not really versed in that, so don't hold it to me. But yeah, so that Companion controls like a lot of stuff. Like if you go in and open up that list, like you can't even open the list up. Some of you can't even open it up all the way because like it drops off the bottom of the screen, and I don't know. I always usually end up searching for the devices or software I'm trying to control just because that list is huge. So definitely, I believe it.
So the one that BitFocus is saying in their support group, I got the link from Pierre, and I just kind of dove in while you were speaking, is the Draco Terra KVM, and I'll put that in the comments for everybody so they know. This is the, I guess, I don't know if I could say recommended, but this is what they're saying that you can control off the bat right now if you own a KVM. It's the Draco Terra KVM, and I'll put that in the comments for everybody to see which one I'm talking about. That is the recommended KVM.
Or at least the supported, at least.
And it probably has a network port. I'm guessing I don't know. I'll have to look into that when we're done. But yeah, that's probably your best bet. All right,
Justin. I think Jason had a quick question.
Yeah.
Yeah, real quick. You touched on something earlier about you didn't trust playback on these, so using it as like a little media server or something like that is not a good idea.
Now I am using, like I said, I've built a second one that I'm using as a file server, and I've played some stuff through it, streamed it to some of my devices, and it does okay. It doesn't have an eSATA connection to my hard drives. It's all USB 3 or 3.1. So it's fast. It's not as fast as like some of my other rigs here, or my main desktop rig here. It does okay. In a show environment, I would still always copy my video files to my playback machine. So if I've got 2 machines, primary and slave playback pro, I'm still going to copy those files to that machine. But it can play it. I've played some pretty big Blu-rays that I've converted from my own collection, and it'll play those fine. So it does okay. I'm just, with the way I am, and for a show environment, corporate AV environment, I don't know if I would actually play everything off of it, but it's definitely a place that I'm going to use as a repository for working between show machines and my work machines when I'm on show site working with it. So it's just going to kind of be I guess to each their own, play around with it and see kind of what performance you get, if you're getting any stuttering, any lag in playback. That'll kind of be your tell. I have SSDs in mine. I know some people put traditional bladder discs in theirs, so it really just depends on the performance that you get out of it.
Thank you.
Kind of what you put into it, hardware wise.
Two quick things, Justin. Your audio got a little choppy, at least for me. I'm not sure if anyone else is experiencing that, but I'm not sure if there's anything on your end that changed.
It might just be the internet. It can be dicey here sometimes.
And I'll just mention, both Ori and I know somebody, a colleague of ours, Tim, built a Plex server with a Pi 3, I believe.
maybe 3B, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've
so
seen
that's
that
the
too.
same thing as like the OSMC. You can kind of the same thing as the Plex server in a sense.
Yeah. I have the media server Snap-in installed in Open Media Vault, and if I play stuff through that, it handles it really well. But if I just go through Windows or Mac File Explorer and call up a large video, I've noticed that sometimes for me, and this is over Wi-Fi typically when I pull it up, it sometimes will stutter or there'll be some buffering issues. But for the most part, if I use the mini DLNA server, as they call it, Snap-in, it does a pretty good job. So it is pretty decent. But like I said, I wouldn't go running a GS, all my videos off of it for a GS. I'd still copy them all to my local playback machines. If that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. One of the other projects I want to do with a Pi is because the Pi 4s have two micro HDMIs that can do 4K, correct?
Yeah, they do 4K.
So one of the things I wanted to do was to build out a little one and get a couple of those. I don't remember who makes these little tiny projectors. It might be little Panasonics.
Pico projectors.
And project onto pumpkins for Halloween decorations. You know, like they do at Disney's Haunted Mansion.
Oh wow, yeah, that would
I was
be
like,
interesting.
Yeah, and maybe even I was either thinking that, or I have a little deck outside my condo. I was thinking about maybe putting up a little what's it called, a scrim, and do like a hologram or something. You know, something cool.
I've seen something like that before. That could be interesting.
I would look into a program called Mad Mapper. They have a little box you can get now. It used to be software based, now it's software and hardware, and they sell this little tiny box. It looks like the size of an M box from Christie. It's very versatile for that kind of live mapping of like a pumpkin would be. That program is great because you can see what's really cool about it is you can see the points on the actual live feed on the projector side, so you know where you're moving your points to and in virtual space, or from the virtual space to the real world, you can see that map going on. The program is called Mad Mapper. We'll put that in the comments.
Yeah, but I want to do it with a Pi.
I'm just saying.
I want a Pi.
Let them play. Let them figure it out for the rest of us.
We did have one other question that just came in. Can this be configured to run lighting software for LED lights, or using DMX to USB? Have you had any experience with that, Justin?
I haven't done anything like that per se, but there's a group on
Like
Facebook.
Ori has.
But and Ori might know, yeah.
I haven't actually played with it directly, but I have been looking at it because that's one of the things that I want to do with a Pi down the line is to make an all-in-one DMX and 4-wire and pixel tester to just bring onto some larger job sites that I work on. I started looking into it last week. There is a platform that you can run. I haven't gotten too deep into my research, but it's got an installer for Pi. It's called Open Lighting Architecture, part of Open Lighting Project, and I'll send links along, I guess, to Omar or Ed, I can share them right in the Facebook chat.
At OPLP has actually been used. So anybody that doesn't know where Raspberry Pis came from, what they were designed for is to teach kids how to program and code. That's what they were initially designed for. They were cheap, affordable microcomputers that they can send to schools to have the kids learn how to program on them, like the kit that Omar, I don't know if you could see, but the kit Omar showing something similar to that. That's a newer one, but this was originally, that's what these were originally designed for. And they would code them to show how to turn on light switches, and they actually set these things up to water plants in their classroom and stuff like that. So the OPO, the open light source that you're talking about, Ori, has actually been used on the Pi since Raspberry Pi 1. So I wouldn't see an issue with it if you can get it all together and have everything read and communicate. I'm pretty sure you'd probably be able to get it to read the way you want it to.
Yeah, there was a second link that I threw in there as well that has a tutorial for making a DMX tester.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you, Ori, for posting those links.
Yep.
Sorry for the lighting guys out here. This is like my final breakthrough for something with lighting guys. Finally, thank you so much. Piers just commented. I've been trying to find a way to help the lighting community out so bad, and this is like an awesome in. So Companion supports ArtNet for both in and out. So there's kind of a support for lighting directly. Did not know that. That is awesome to know. Now the community knows about it. Hopefully I can contact Ryan Wade and get him and me talking some ideas now, because that is really, that's huge for me now. Thank you for that.
Well, so speaking of pumpkins, I mean, Ori works on a thing called the Great Pumpkin Blaze, where how many pumpkins do you guys light up?
This year things are a little different, but typically we are upwards from, I would say at this point, upwards from 9,000 carved pumpkin faces on the grounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've gone to it a number of years. It's here in the Hudson Valley, New York. I know a lot of people who work on that particular experience, and it's awesome. But could you imagine if you had to put a whole ton of pies around to control your lighting and projections? That would be.
Sometimes I feel like that might be preferable. That's actually the exact job that brought up the DMX tester idea, because
I figured as much.
It's a lot of walking to get a little Bluetooth tester from the office.
Right, but so if it does DMX, maybe I'll have to branch out to not just do Halloween, but do those Christmas things where the lights go to the music, and I'll have to get like an FM transmitter.
There you go.
If I can find one, because everyone's doing drive-in shows with it. But yeah, no, that's it just sounds like I'm going to be. I might as well buy stock in Raspberry Pi, because it sounds like I'm going to own a dozen of these things before the end of the holidays.
They are addicting because of how insanely cheap they can be. So they are addicting because you don't need a Pi 4 to run all this stuff. You can run on Pi 3s and Pi Zeros. Pi Zeros are $15 to $20, and Pi Beat, the Raspberry Pi 3s, are $35. So it can get addicting when you think of the stuff that you can do with all of it. Like I said, I have a Raspberry Pi 1. I do have a Zero. I have 3 Raspberry Pi 3s. I have the 4, and I actually have 2 Raspberry Pi 2s. One of them was running my media server, and then the other one I have is a RetroPi.
Great. So yeah, we'll let's let Justin get back to it. We just totally derailed his conversation.
No, it's fine.
But I'm glad we all came up with some great ideas. Hopefully we gave some of you on Facebook
Was that the Zero, Andrew, real quick? Did you hold up the Zero? Can you spotlight? So this is what a Zero is, by the way. I don't have mine available.
I
Yeah.
have to. Sorry,
It's tiny.
Takes you 2 seconds.
It's even small. It's like what, 2 by 1?
Yeah, it's small.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a computer, people.
That is an entire PC, exactly. That's it's insane.
And it's like and Chris touched on this earlier. It's pretty much like just about, if you can dream it, you Google it, and someone's either done it or there's some solution out there where you can do that. So the lighting guys, the audio guys, yeah, like Omar said, there's an ArtNet listener in Companion even. So there's just stuff that I don't even know, that I haven't even come across yet, that you can do. So the short answer is yes, probably. But anyway, so we're actually getting close to. Oh, we're almost out of time anyway. Well, that's good, because we're almost done. The only other thing, because I mean, really, once we get to Companion, I have a feeling maybe not everybody, but most of us probably have already seen or used Companion parts, so we're not worrying about that so much. But I got a couple more things to cover as far as the Pi side of it goes, and so
We
here
do
we're gonna
have a companion tech talk, by the way, so that is there. If we don't fully get into companion, guys, we did do a full companion tech talks with Nat, excuse me, when he was on. There is a whole amazing and great information. We had a lot of people jump in on that one. So if we don't get to it, it's there for you to go to find. I think it's episode 6 or 5.
I'll put it in the comments right now.
yeah.
It was
So-
5.
So yeah, so Nat did a pretty good job of giving you a feel of around, once you get to that admin portal for that. So we're almost there. We're getting you to the point where you're going to get to that. So accessing your CompanionPi system remotely. So as I mentioned earlier, I throw this in my Pelican and we'll go out to a show site with it, and I don't hook a keyboard and a mouse up to it. And like I said, when you boot this up, if you have a Stream Deck attached, your buttons will appear as you last left it. And if you have your browser open, pop open a browser on a computer that's on the same network with it, and you punch in the IP address :8000, and boom, the companion portal's there. But there's a few things that you maybe need to do, from one of a laptop. Maybe you have a laptop or a show machine, whether you're on show site or home or whatever, and you need to administer your Pi system, but you don't want to go through the hassle of hooking up a monitor, keyboard, mouse to it. So that's where accessing it remotely comes in handy. I think Chris touched on this in the very beginning. CompanionPi systems can be accessed and remotely controlled over SSH, which is Secure Shell Protocol. By default, the CompanionPi will be configured with SSH access active. So once you know what your IP address is, you'll be able to get into it through port 22. Now you may be asking, so how do I do that? And I'll cover that for both operating systems. As somebody who uses both, I know there may be some of you out there that are one or the other. For Windows, there's a free program called Putty, Putty. That's what I use on my 2 Windows machines to access my CompanionPi systems. This is actually a screenshot from my own setup. And you'll see over there, you might be able to see, I've got my CompanionPi system, and then my OMV, which stands for Open Media Vault. That's my media server Pi. I have those kind of set there, but I'll go through accessing that here real time, just so everybody can kind of see. Hold on. I need to minimize that first. Otherwise, we're going to get infinity screen.
It did look cool for a second there.
I know. I had to move one of my previews. I've got quad previews on my other monitor, and I had to move it over so I could actually see what I was doing. So Putty, I've actually got it right here. And this is, again, a screenshot, and I wish I could make this bigger, but it's in the deck, or we can go over it more again. But as you can see, my 2 systems are already set here, but we need to get to the new machine that I've just set up here with all of you. So if you recall, I set the IP address to be 192.168.0.223. It already pre-fills in the port for you. Once you have, Putty or an SSH client, it doesn't have to be Putty. This is just the one that I use for Windows. It pre-filled the port for me. So once you have your IP address entered, you can save it if you want. New Pi system, let's call it that. And it'll put it down here in this list. So all you have to do is come in and double click the system that you want. And so new Pi system. It may give you the security alert. It's not cached in the registry. I just click yes through that. And now I get a screen that says log in as. And so if you recall, the username is Pi. the admin is Pi, and our Ed Willick password is 1234. And it might take a second. What? Hold on a second. Did it somehow reset itself? Of course it would do that. I may have to go in and reset the password because somehow
It is not liking Ed's passwords tonight at all.
He got hacked. How could that have happened? How could it have happened?
So stuff like this may happen to you. So if that's the case, let me.
And this is exactly what we were talking about earlier about knowing, programming it yourself so you understand how to fix these sort of things when they happen to you on a show site. If Chris would have just sent me a Raspberry Pi and this happened and I didn't know how to fix it, then I would be sunk on a show, or at least I wouldn't be able to use this piece of equipment, and it would be a bummer. So if there's any last minute questions you guys want to get in, because we're getting close to the hour, get them in now. We'll try to get to them. Somebody, Michael asked, did he try 1234 or password 1234? Because we
that's what we set it to, but for some reason, of course, now it's not letting me.
Okay, which one of you in chat has taken his IP address and reset the password on him?
I'm blaming Andrew.
What I might have to do is I might have to go into, and it won't mess with it. I'm gonna have to go into my my live one that's up right now. It won't. It's fine. I can go into it. So let me go back to that. Oh, but I gotta minimize that. If that happens, I think there's a process that I have to look up where you can reset the password. At the very worst case, just flash the card again and start over. If you really get hosed to where you can't get in, I don't know how that password got changed. It may have been because I had my keyboard set on the wrong input on the KVM while I was in another screen. I'll have to pull it up, but since we're 9 minutes out, I'm going to try and get to the finish line of what I'm going to show you guys here. So let me get my putty back up. So I'm going to go into my live Pi that's running the show right here. So I'm going to log in with Pi. I am not going to say what my password is. And I use a similar password between the two different systems, so it might be this one. All right. So I'm using, and I'll do that again because I just realized I didn't change my input. So I go, here's putty. I'm going into my CompanionPi. If I just double click it after I've already set it up, you get this little command screen here. Log in as Pi. I'm going to put my password in. And it doesn't show you while you type it out. So if you miss a character, just do it again. What? Or if your keyboard is really annoying like mine, we do it really slow. Of course, I would have this issue now. Oh, okay. Anyway, so now this is, you'll recognize this screen. This is kind of what we saw when we logged in from the actual physical Pi machine itself. You kind of get some stuff here, like you last logged in here from this IP address. You can go into Raspberry config. So you might be asking yourself, why would I need to go into this screen? Well, this is actually, for now, the main way that you update Companion. Now, I'm going to do it live here. Now, one thing to keep in mind that when you do the update process, it does take, like if you're using a Stream Deck like I am, it's going to take it out of commission for the duration of the update process, and then it's going to reboot the whole box when it's done. So before I do that, let me go back and show those slides before I lose the ability to do so. Well, actually, I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself. I'm sorry. For my Mac friends out there, I didn't forget about you. If you have a Mac, it's a little bit easier for you, actually, because your Mac is based on Unix, kind of Unix Linux base. There's an SSH client already built in the terminal. So if you have, if you know how to get in a terminal, it's kind of buried down. I usually, can just spotlight search for it. Bring up terminal. You'll see the terminal screen here as you see in the graphic. And so when terminal gets pulled up, there's a menu next to terminal that says shell, and that drops down to menu. And the fourth option down is new remote connection. And I had never really played around with this much myself before starting with my Pi system. So some of you may be familiar with this. For some of you, it may not. I don't know why this machine, my PowerPoint machine, is hesitating now. So when you pull up that box, you may see, it may find the IP address of your SSH server for you. So it may see your Pi box. If it doesn't, you can click the plus button, and the graphic may be a little bit small, and I apologize, but basically it's on the right, it says server. And there'll be a place to click the plus button if you don't see your IP address, and you literally just type in the IP address of your Pi server. And down at the bottom, there's a option that says username. You're just going to type in Pi, and then you literally click connect. And when you click connect, you should get a second terminal window open, and it's going to take you to that same screen that we were just at, where basically it takes you to the login prompt, the root login prompt for your Pi username at CompanionPi. So same thing as we did on the Windows system. It'll take you there. I believe I have a video here that shows that kind of playing through. That I did a screen grab. And if this plays back too fast, this will be available for you guys to download and kind of watch again, and as well as the PowerPoint. But just kind of gives you an idea of what it looks like. So I'm typing in my password there, and then boom, it takes me to that screen. So any questions before I move on to the final part, which we've got like 3 minutes to cover, which is going to be the update part, but that is the last part anyway.
Yeah, I think Zoom's kind of killing the video of that, but and Facebook. But let's just move on so that we can get that. Make sure we cover this last bit.
Okay.
We don't want people to not be able to update their companions.
Right. So as I was starting to show, I got a little bit ahead of myself because I forgot I had this slide down here. So to update the CompanionPi system right now, the main way to do that, it is going to be at that command line, that root command line, with your sudo super user do command. And it's a pretty simple command. It's literally sudo space companion /update. And then you press enter. So, but like I said, the key thing to keep in mind is that it will take your system out of commission once you hit enter. It's going to start downloading, and you do have to be connected to the internet, obviously. It's going to start pulling everything from GitHub, from the same place where you would get your Companion. Now, typically when you run Companion on like a local computer, you just download the Companion file, open it, and run it. This process is a little bit different. It's going to pull basically line by line all the updates for all of the equipment and software instances that are available in Companion. Whether there's updates or not, it's going to check the repositories for all of them. So the process can take, up to a couple minutes. I think for me, it's usually done within a minute. So like I said, system's out of commission when it does that. And then when it's done, it's going to reboot the box automatically. And then it should come, like I said, your Stream Deck should come up with all of its buttons as it was. And then you'll be able to refresh or get back into the web portal. So that's the one thing that I do throw out there for people that are doing this. Like if you're trying to update, if you're having some stuff that's acting wonky, I kind of update mine as I go. And one update, something happened. vMix changed something within the last couple of weeks. And then I was using it, and all of a sudden some stuff was starting to act really weird and wonky. And I even went to their GitHub site and submitted comments on it. And I got a response back. Well, try updating, because we think we found it. And so I ran this command, and sure enough, vMix is now working correctly with all of my Companion button presses. So that really, mostly covers. I think I put within 3 to 5 minutes here, but it's more like a minute. I mean, it really depends on I guess your internet connection and how many pieces of equipment or instances it has to update. And then it's really just accessing the Companion interface, and that's the same way you would. Now on the computer side version, I think it gives you that little tray app that clicks like launch GUI and stuff like that. Now you won't have that. So what you'll have to do is pop open Chrome, Safari, whatever, put your IP address in, :8000, and boom, you'll be at that familiar, connections, instances, all your buttons, surfaces, everything else will be traditional Companion at that point. And then you'll be, ready to go. And that's really it. And it is 9:01, and my God, I did it. I wasn't sure if I was going to get it all in there, but that's at least to get you up and running. So so hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Again, I'm going to make everything available to Omar and the guys so they can put it up for you, such as my PowerPoint deck, which again, I don't know why it started to be sluggish here at the end. And I'm available. I'm on Facebook. If you want to add me, reach out to me, whatever. I still have time as of right now. Hopefully some stuff might pick up soon, but until then, I'm around. If you want to chat about this stuff, or if you know stuff that maybe I didn't know, or got a better way to do something than what I covered tonight, then by all means, I'd love to hear it. So I guess with that, I will turn it back over to the guys, the hosts, and see if there's any final discussions or questions or anything.
Thanks, Justin. That was great. That I think anyone who was watching will be able to watch the replay and get their Companion Pis set up. I know that's what I'm going to do, because obviously while I was switching, I wasn't able to do that, and my Pi is still kind of in pieces at the moment. So once I get that done, I plan to.
The great Nat coming in. Great talk tonight, Justin. That came from Nat.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Nat. I appreciate it. I wasn't quite sure if I was going to be able to get it all out clear as somebody who, again, mainly stays behind the curtain, but that wasn't too bad.
No, it was great. It was great. Thank you. So, are there any questions from the panel while we're here? I think we covered almost all the Facebook things. A couple of people asked more about. Sean asked more about some KVMs, like what's the best or your favorite. Which we just ran out of time. So, Sean, come back another week and ask that question again. Justin's a regular on our panel. So even though he won't be presenting next week, he'll be able to be here to answer some of those questions if you hold on to them. Maybe that's a thing we do. Maybe we do some shootouts and play with some different ones. I know Justin
will look into that because that's something like I have this one, but I don't have any network or companion controllable one, so that's something I'll have to do some research on.
Yeah, the other Justin, who's usually on our panel, I know he's on a gig. He has something that he uses as well. Sorry, I have to change something on the switching. There we go. I thought I did that. There we go. So we can definitely look at that in the future. But people are saying thanks for the knowledge. That was Justin Hammond said that. Iris said thanks. Yeah, no, thank you guys for being here, for giving us the questions. I hope you guys got something out of it tonight. Hope you can set up your pies. We are going to be making a modification to our schedule. There's some scheduling conflicts that I've had with gigs and that Omar's had with gigs. So we're just trying to confirm for next week with our presenter if they can move the day to Sunday. We're going to be looking at Sundays at 7:00. So just a shift one day from Monday to Sunday. So keep an eye on the AV Educate page. Maybe Omar can just drop the link in there. That's where we will announce for next week. We'll have an event page up and we'll get it out in all the regular places. If you are joining us for the first time, please like and follow AV Educate so you know when we go live. That's where this is hosted every week. We get together with our esteemed panel of panelists here. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. Today we had a core group. There's Jason. And Nick's there too. I forgot. He was hanging out in the background. He's on
He was in the shadow realm.
A mobile device tonight, I believe. But yeah, so stay tuned for next week's schedule. I believe we are talking to Felix Pike next week. And I believe he was going to be talking about client relations and the business side, or not the business side, sorry, the how we be client facing as technicians and that sort of thing. And in this virtual space, we're, as a technician, we're now also on a camera and in front of people. So I think that was kind of the gist of his talk. We'll get that information up. I know in future weeks, we're going to dive into Zoom one week. So keep your eye out for those postings. I know there's been a bunch of new features in Zoom, which have been great. I don't know if anybody's played with things like being able to move the gallery view and the multi-pinning and multi-spotlighting. We were
giving
using
away our secrets.
we were using some of that tonight. We also let us know. We started streaming with a different software. We're still using Zoom as our platform to meet, but we're doing our stream in a different way. So if you've seen other episodes, let us know what you think of our new method. The filters are coming out. I see Bodie's got a filter on now. So yeah, there's we were doing a couple of different things, couple new things. I'm glad that Justin could be our guinea pig for that. So thank you guys. Thank you for that. Now everyone's going to play with filters for the next 10 minutes. Awesome.
Oh boy.
Good times. So thank you, everybody, on Facebook. We will see you next week, whether it's Sunday or Monday. Keep it peeled. And that schedule is going to be temporary, only for, maybe mid-October or beginning of November. And then we'll switch back to Mondays because we like this time slot. If there's any topics you guys want us to cover, please let us know. And for that Zoom one that's going to be coming up in a couple weeks, let us know what things are bugging you in Zoom. Drop a comment right now. I know everybody's touched Zoom, so drop a comment and tell us what thing about Zoom you're having a problem with, what setting you can't find, what bugs you about Zoom, and any experience you've had so far with any of the new features. And we'll try to address those things in that talk. So leave us a comment right now, or just go to the AV Educate page, leave us a comment so we can make sure we cover those things when we get to it. So with that, Chris or Omar, you got anything else?
Yeah, I just want to say if you guys are interested in paying it forward with us and helping out the community, learning, growing, keeping things moving forward, we're always looking for contributors to join the panel, to join the groups, to contribute with us as admins or bloggers, vloggers, writers, anything like that. Reach out to us. We can utilize your skill sets. If you have a great idea you want help with, or you want a community to back you up with, or if you have your own platform you want to use and you want to kind of promote it with us, you're definitely more than welcome to come on to AV Educate. We are a platform for everybody. So we try to keep everything organized and moving forward with you guys so that we can, grow from the stagehand technicians to engineering mindset, and we can keep that moving forward. And again, it's just the three of us for now, but we grow every day and we continue to grow. So the more you guys help us out, the more we can help you out. And that's really all I got. Shameless plug there. Sorry. Bodhi, I'll let you close out the show like always.
All right, guys. Also, one thing that I know we put a poll out on AV Educate on things. What? Who? Don't yell at me. Anyway, I know we put a poll out on AV Educate about different things you want to see and different things you want us to touch subjects on and things like that, or anything you want to dive back into. Do you want to do a more in-depth dive of OBS, kind of like Omar was saying? Let us know what you want to hear. One of the things that somebody did put out there, and we kind of talked about it last night a little bit, diving into our panelists a little bit. If that's something you want to see, and kind of we go through our panelists and kind of say, okay, Jason, this week's Jason. Jason, what do you do? What do you work with? What have you worked with? What are your best setups? Omar, what do you do? What are, we all know Omar's the engineer that put all this together, and then the brains behind the operation sitting way over there. He could probably school everybody here on some audio stuff going down. But whatever you want us to do, let us know, because without the information that you bring to us, we can't give it to you.
Great. Well, thanks, Chris. Good point. And just want to say goodbye to everybody on Facebook. We're going to kill the stream now. So everybody have a good night. Thank you again, Justin. Thank you, Ori, Nick, Jason. Andrew had to drop off a little early, but thank you guys. We'll see you next week.
Yeah,
thanks.
Absolutely.